Hello everybody and welcome to my World Trigger chapters number 227 and 228 review. Now, before I get started talking about these chapters, I just want to say a few things about World Trigger and the stuff going around me in general, right? World Trigger is a very important series to me as a person. It is a very good tactical series. It gives a lot in a sense of a strategic series, and it isn't your typical battle shonen, and I just really like that about the series, right? And I've wanted to talk about it for a while, and I think that now is the perfect chance for me too. I would like to do this under better audio conditions though, because where I'm filming this outside right now, they are currently ripping up a road behind me. I wish I was exaggerating, but nope, they've got the dump trucks being filled up. So if you hear a bunch of loud beeping sounds, I don't know how much of that's going to come through into the microphone, but if you guys hear stuff like that, that is why, because, well, like I said, they are literally pulling up the road behind me. I don't know if I can record another time and still get this out at the time I sort of need to go out at. So, yeah. Now, going into World Trigger, of course, the arc that we are currently in is the away mission test, right? Or the test for it. Nowhere close to the away mission yet. Pretty much, I think we're on day 5 or day 4. Pretty sure we're on day 4, where, pretty much last time, Suo was calling around, and, of course, Osamu was wanting to understand, alright, I've got a plan. We need to talk to some people, right? So that's pretty much where this chapter opens up, right? Sue was talking to Kodera last time, so Kodera is now talking to Osamu. One other note before I really get into this chapter, as much as I like to be an encyclopedic knowledge of World Trigger, I cannot remember every character name, and of course in World Trigger, there are too many character names, right? So I'm going to try my best to talk about all of this as professionally as possible, I guess. I don't know. But I will be forgetting some character names. I'm going to try not to, but I know it's going to happen and it's going to be unavoidable, right? But like I said, last time, Kodera and Mikumo started talking on the phone, right? So we start off with Osamu pretty much being like, "Hey, Kodera, this is Mikumo." Kodera's like, "Hey, Mikumo, what intel did you want to ask about?" And at this point, Osamu says, "Well, my questions aren't really that straightforward, but what are your thoughts on the initial exchange of each battle system," right? And Kodera's like, "What do you mean, initial exchange? This does sound really complicated. You mind I put you on speakerphone here?" Osamu's like, "Yeah, go ahead. I'll do the same here," right? And at this point, Suo points out, and he's like, "Hey, the rules say that members of fellow and original squads cannot communicate, right? So Kotori and Miura can't talk to each other, being that they were on the same squad in Kotori's squad, right?" And at this point, Kodera's like, "So by initial exchange, do you mean the first time units exchange blows during a given match?" Right? And Osamu's like, "Yeah, that's right." And Kodera's like, "But why are you asking about this in particular?" And at this point, Osamu says, "Because I believe that the initial exchange often determines the outcome of the whole match." He says, "Yesterday's special assignment asked us to come up with reasons why the B-rank wars pit 3 squads against each other. And one reason that I came up with is that one-on-one matches would give too big advantage to a squad with more people. Being that, if a squad has 4 people, even if those 4 people are gravely unskilled, 3 people are weaker into 4, right? That's the whole thing of more heads together is a better outcome, right? Like 4 heads together can always beat 1 at almost anything, even if that 1 is incredibly smart and talented, right?" Osamu continues to say, "Now imagine after the initial exchange, one squad is left with 2 fewer members than the other. Now they're starting to turn the tables and make that a 2-member disadvantage. Once that happens, unless they can find a tactical way to turn things around, that numbers disadvantage will only grow from there. As opposed with an outside force," and I'm sorry, this is now Kodera, and he's like, "As opposed to a match with 3 or 4 squads where a chaotic brawl would still make everyone's game, even a chaotic one. So Kodera continues to say, so what you're suggesting is in the battle sims, losing people in the initial exchange often reflects the height of the match, right? So at this point, Osamu's like, yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. And we see here that Miura, the person who is on Kitori's squad, right? He's thinking to himself, since he can't talk, he's like, it's true that I've only focused most of my skills while missing the other obvious power, right? And he sort of sits there, he's like, oh, Kitora sort of seems flustered. I guess fighters who are usually strong enough to control the battlefield on their own will find it hard to notice this concept, right? And then we get to one of the characters. I don't remember her name for the life of me. I honestly feel like it's on the tip of my tongue, but I don't remember it. I'm pretty sure that he is the one on Kakizaki squad, right? One of the two kids. Or no, he's the Ozma squad kid. Yeah, he's one of the Ozma squad dudes, right? But pretty much, he says, I think Mikumo is right about this. Some of our matches have ended in draws where we were 1 or 2 people down, but I can't remember a time where we were down 3 or more and managed to turn it around. And Osamu's like, I see. I mean, I was thinking that might be the case, but our squad's win-loss records alone made for a pretty small sample size. At this point, Kodera's like, that makes sense. So instead of thinking about matches for a set amount of turns, we should emphasize and prioritize that very first attack, right? And he's like, I'm convinced. I think my squad's records support this theory, right? And Osamu's like, great, thanks. I'm feeling more confident about this too, right? But Kodera is sitting there thinking, and he's like, this probably benefits us more than it does them, though, right? And at this point, Kodera's like, is there anything else that you wanted to ask? And he's like, we'll answer the best to our ability, right? So Ui is there, the operator for this away mission test to a squad, right? And Ui's like, well, one more thing. I'm Ui, by the way. I'm in charge of data, right? And Rikuda, the operator on Kodera's away mission test squad, is like, oh, hello, Ui. I'm Rikuda. I'm handling data on this end, right? And she's like, how is it doing, right? But pretty much what Ui asked for is the data on the enemies and tests. Like, we've seen in the past few chapters how not all of the data is filled in. So Ui's like, hey, can we have what your guys' data has that we don't have, and maybe we can get a bunch of information here that will help us win more, right? And Ui's like, it seems to be filling in at random, and it shouldn't be happening based off anything about a win or a loss that happens in the matches, right? And Ui's just like, hey, if we can compare notes, I think it would be very helpful for both of us, right? So she sends over an image, and Rokuda looks, and she's like, oh, yeah, look at this. They have way different data than us, right? As we can see, stuff mainly based on Mizukami squad, right? And we see that, like, Mizukami's Tryon level, they have, right? But Teruya's Tryon level, they don't have, right? So we just see a bit of this discrepancy of the missing information, right? And it doesn't really seem to have any rhyme or reason for who has what. It says some people have something, some people have other stuff, right? And Yui's like, sharing data on every squad would take forever, but it's worth time to swap infos on Ninami and Mizukami squads, being that those are the two that, well, yeah, those are two squads that are just overpowering everybody, right? So Rokuda's like, all right, I'll send you over ours, right? But the Ozma squad kid, I want to say Okudera. I'm thinking about it. It may be Okudera. I'm not sure, though. I'm going to call him Okudera. If not, I will... I'll flash something up on the screen saying if it's Okudera or not. Maybe a red X or a green check mark. I don't know. At this point, Okudera's like, this is neither here nor there, but Kotori, what does your Omni Penchant skill do, right? And at this point, pretty much Kotori just describes his skill. Pretty much, it lets her equip 2 penchant skills for free, right? I don't even know what a penchant skill is. It's very mixed into this game, right? But Okudera is just like, oh, so basically you get 1 more skill than everyone else. Kind of seems overpowered, right? And Kitori's just like, I don't know, the penchant skills are all kind of meh, right? But at this point, Oki, he is sitting back there with hhis visor on and all of his greatness, right? And Oki's like, I've got a question. It seems to me like your squad is full of folks who don't have a whole lot to try on. How do you keep winning matches? Right? And here for a second, Kader's like, am I supposed to tell him? I mean, he's probably asking him to fix Mikumo, how he's winning, right? He's like, but I can't outright tell him. We've already helped him enough, right? I mean, if anything, they're helping us more. But then we see that Kitora comes over to, like, the brain talk speak stuff, right? And Kitora's like, I guess fine at helping them. It raises everybody's odds of Mizukami and Nanamiya suffering a few matches, right? So Kader's like, all right, we're good. And he's like, well, instead of relying on shooter triggers, blade triggers consume a lot less Tryon, but they still pack a big, hefty punch. Of course, it might be apples and oranges stat-wise, but still, using Mikumo as an example, he'll have better defense with Ray Gust than a typical shield, right? And everybody's just like, oh, that makes a bit of sense, right? And I find this funny, that being that Ray Gust is what Osamu used for the general beginning of the series till he learned about Spider, right? It really sort of goes full circle in a way. It's just something I noticed and I couldn't, like, help but think about a little bit. Like, wow, Osamu's just here doing full loop stuff, right? He's using the Ray Gust again, even if it's in a video game, right? And Yui sort of thinks with Kotori, right, with that brain talk sort of thing, right? That solves our problems, and Kotori's just like, we can't be sure unless we actually try it, though, right? And at this point, Sua's like, all right, this has all been really helpful. May fortune favor both squads, right? You better go ahead and make sure that those other squads eat some losses. And Kader is like, as long as you know that we'll be fighting to win whenever we fight you, right? And at this point, Sua ends up the call, right? And as he's talking to his actual squad now, if not anybody else, he's like, is that everything you needed, Mikumo? And Osamu's like, yeah, pretty much, but there's one more thing. And at this point, we see that Sua is getting a call from Utagawa, right? Utagawa squad's, of course, the one that has Urashima on it, Uega, Yuma, and I don't know their operator. I think that's all the squad members. I am not 100% sure, though. I think, at least, right? And, oh, I think it's Shiki. I think it has Shiki as the operator. I don't know, though. I must be pulling this out of a hat, I think. I'll put a check marker next on the screen, right? At this point, we see that Utagawa is calling Sua, though, right? And Utagawa's like, hope you're doing well, Sua. What would you say to team you up on the battle sims? And Sua's like, team you up? Huh? Why come to me and my peeps, right? Utagawa's like, I mean, we've got 2 consecutive wins against your squad, so you're a pretty safe choice, right? And I find this funny, because it is literally saying that because Utagawa is winning against Sua, he thinks it's safe to team up with him, right? Of course, we've got Yuma and Osamu on these 2 teams, which of course are main characters. They've got to have favor falling for them, right? But that's really all that is there, right? At this point, Sua's like, I'm going to beat the crap out of Utagawa, and Utagawa's like, just kidding, it was actually Kuga's idea, right? And we see that Murashima sitting there with Kuga, and it's like, looks like you're the only one who's worrying about a squad mate. And Yuma's like, worrying? Nah, not me. I was just thinking allying with Osamu could net us some wins, right? So Sue's like, all right, cool. Go ahead and soon to Utagawa our dare, Yui, right? Yui, over all of the data that we were talking about earlier, right? All of the squad-looking things, right? And at this point, Sue's like, all right, what's this final piece of the puzzle, Osamu, right? And Osamu's like, all right, I've been thinking about it all day, and I realized what distinguishes our squad from the others. It's the fact that we have 3 captains on our squad, right? And Kotori's like, 3 captains? I'm pretty sure the only captain we've got here is Sua, right? But then Yui's like, you're incredibly right. We've got the Kotori squad captain, the Sua squad captain, and the Tamakoma 2 captain, right? We've got 3 captain level figures in our exam group, right? And Oki's like, yeah, now you mention it, why do we have this many? And Osamu's like, let me explain step by step. Just as we discussed, I have a feeling that the initial exchange is the key to every match. Whether or not a squad emerges from that initial exchange in the damage lead, right, As Oki suggested during the meeting, it all depends on teamwork and getting our skills working in tandem. It just so happens that Mizukami's squad has already found one good way to go about it. Basically, a single person handles the teamwork. As we see a little match, or we see an image of Mizukami, of course, like playing these character avatars as you would pieces, right? Really cool, striking visual all around, right? So, Kitori's like, true enough, but that's got nothing to do with anything at this point, since the number of units goes up every day, right? Osamu's like, yes, it'd be a lot of work to ask for one of us, but there are 3 captains here to split up the work, right? And everybody's like, wait, what are you saying, right? And Sua's like, so you're suggesting we take our squad and chop it into 3 mini Mizukami squads, right? And Oki's like, I get it, right? And Osamu's like, that's it exactly, right? He's like, attackers, shooters, gunners, snipers. Each role has its own way of thinking about action. Meanwhile, since the captain's job is to take command of the operation, they know how to formulate combos that require teamwork. We may not be on Mizukami's level, but I think we can put together 3 little squads that can pull off complex, accurate tactics better than most other squads can, right? And Yui's like, now I'm imagining coordinated attacks and teams coming from 3 locations at once. That might even outshine what Mizukami is capable of really thinking of, right? And Kotori's like, but my usual squad doesn't have snipers though. Same goes for Sua's, right? And Osamu's like, that's where Oki comes in, right? And of course, Oki's just sitting back here like, well, glad to still know that I've got a job here in this entire thing, right? Knowing that he just wouldn't be stuck doing universal and special assignments all day, right? That would suck if like all of your like exam partners are just going playing video games and you're just sitting there just doing all the assignments for everybody, right? But pretty much Sue was like, right, that settles it. We won't know until tomorrow when we're getting even more units. But based on the info we've got right now, it makes sense to put that strat into our rotation, right? He's pretty much like, we'll do plenty of prep tonight and go wild tomorrow. And the entire team of Mikumo, Oki, Kotori, and Ui's just like, let's do it, right? And so we open up on the morning of the sealed environment phase, day 4. We've been in this arc for 20-ish chapters. Oh golly gee, right? But at this point, we open up the next morning, and we open up with Mizukami squad, right? And we see that, of course, he's got his 4 people there, right? And he's got his backup units, right? And we see there are 20 standard units. There's 5 of each squad member, right? And then you've got 4 members of the backup units, right? The A-rank people that you can use, right? Which means that overall, he's going to have 24 pieces he's going to have to play with in a span of, like, 2 minutes, right? Not really feasible, right? So Mizukami's just sitting here, and he's like, there are even more now, right? We get one of his squad members that I don't even know his name. I don't even know where he appears on. Maybe this is the Kaki. No, because Teruya's on Kakisaki's squad. I don't know. This dude appears somewhere, right? And this dude is like, the second half of delegated assignments mostly has to do with trigger engineering, right? And Arafune is like, nothing we can't solve using the resources they've given us, though it could eat a good chunk of time, right? And at this point, Mizukami's like, ahem, attention, please. Very valued squad members. There's something I must tell you all, right? And his entire squad, right? Kon, Teruya, and Arafune, and this one dude, they're all just sitting there, and they're like, why is he speaking so formally all of a sudden, right? And at this point, we will start the next chapter. I'm going to do the next chapter in a different recording because I need to go eat breakfast. I'll be back with chapter 228 here. For you, it'll be a second. For me, it may be a bit longer, right? Let's see what Mizukami's doing. And welcome back to the point where I talk about the next World Trigger chapter I want to talk about. I ate breakfast, and the people tearing up the road behind me have literally moved behind me. So, I am sorry for any noise that gets into this recording. Hopefully not a whole lot makes it in, but, well, with how I've got to record this on this cold morning, I don't know, I think the school parking lot may be a bit better, right? But, so, at this point, like I said, we're talking about chapter 228 now. I should say this one's called the Away Mission Test Part 25. oh boy, we're on part 25, right? So pretty much what just happened in the last part was, what's his name, Mizukami, is like, hey group, I've got something I need to tell you, right? So as we see, Mizukami sort of off screen explained to his group members what the battle sims are, right? And pretty much like, I've been playing these in secret for the past few days, not telling you guys, right? And Mizukami's like, now that the game involves more units, I can't like quite cover all the bases myself, so I think we should play it all together today, right? And Conan's like, alright, that explains it, right? And the one dude who I still don't remember his name, I should have checked while I was eating breakfast. That may have been a good idea, right? Well, he's like, alright, well, let's start by reviewing all the rules for the game, right? So, Arfun is like, alright, first we need to download the software, right? And we see Teroya, and she's just like, she's not very happy with this, right? And she's like, hey, just wait a second. Doesn't anyone else think this is just more than a little nuts? Kashio, you're just ready to accept this and roll him? Alright, his name's Kashio. So pretty much Tori's like, hey Kashio, are you ready to accept this? It's just crazy, right? Kashio's like, sure, I mean, OG pulls stunts like this all the time, so Arfun is like, it was obvious he was sneaking around yesterday, so none of this comes as a big surprise, right? And Mizukami's like, aren't you willing to accept this, little Miss Teroya, right? And she's like, of course I'm not. You need to explain yourself, right? We see one of the upper right agents, Maki, pretty much downvotes Teroya, right? And we see the person who's sitting there with her just like, oh, that's unexpected. I'd sure you take her side, Maki. And Maki's like, when it comes to how she feels, I feel the same, right? However, right now is not the time for this. A massive amount of new laborers just dropped on the squad. Well, the people just started up again back there, so if you guys can hear that, I'm sorry. If you can't, I've got a good recording going on, right? But Maki's like, massive amounts of laborers just dropped onto the squad, and time is now a very precious resource. Slowing that all down means doing a total wrong move, right? Maki's like, if she really wants to grill Captain Mizukami over the stunt he pulled, he should take her time and do it when there's time, right? So the whole idea of gotta find time for this stuff is what's coming in here, right? Mizukami's like I said from the start, I chose everyone here because y'all are smart cookies. Putting you on the focus of universal and delegated assignments is a surefire way to blow the other squads out of the water. That was my basic strat, right? That's why I kept Battle Skim secret on the first day. I don't want you fretting and wasting that brain power that we would need later down the line, right? It was on day 2 they sent me the detailed rules of the Battle Sims, and I realized that I'd have an advantage doing it alone, right? Plus, I knew if I handled the Battle Sims myself, I'd allow you guys to get a bunch of assignments done, right? I had no reason to not do it that way, right? And we see that Ken Satori and, oh geez, Ayashi? No, what's his name? Alright, it was Urashima. I don't know why that, but yeah, Ken Satori and Urashima are sitting there, and then they're like, that makes actually some sense, right? But I doubt that Teroya is actually going to, like, give an explanation, right? Urashima's just like, her usual Kakizaki squad is just super different. And at this point, we see, why am I forgetting these characters? Cosma's there, right? And Cosma's just like, their squad boosts commanding lead. Yep, she's dissatisfied with these tactics, right? I really don't know who the fat kid is, right? He's just like, it's more about emotions and logic, right? And Kazama's like, she doesn't appreciate the being left out of the decision-making process, right? And Troy is just like, if you had such a strong reason, why not loop us in and explain your thinking from the start? Why keep quiet this whole time, right? And Mizukami is just like, I don't want to have a discussion about it, that's all, right? If I said I'm doing this whole thing alone, you'd have said, sure, sounds great. Yeah, pretty unlikely, right? I'd have to hear things like, can you really win on your own? And if you do it alone, you'll get all the extra points from the A-rank judges. That's no fair. All about Lil Miss million reasons why to do it, right? I'd say it's an 80% chance that you all have actually sided against me and insisted on doing it together, right? And Mizukami continues, and he's like, playing together, well, that's the same old thing every other squad's doing. There's no way to better make use of our strong suits, right? that sort of discussion would eat up our low scores, and I was dead set on avoiding all of that, right? And we come back to Maki and the other person, right? And they're like, come to think of it, Kitora said the same thing 2 days ago, right? Like, taking over could come with some risk of its own, right? And Maki's like, that's exactly why a discussion is taking time to compromise, right? From Captain Mizukami's point of view, whether he discussed it or kept it quiet, there was bound to be an argument at some point. Keeping quiet was the only way that he could employ his unique strategy. So I understand what he did, as pretty much Maki's just like, tell us, Mizukami, are you hoping to join the away team, right? And Mizukami tells Cone, and he's like, nope, not my thing, right? So Cone's just like, in that case, why are you so obsessed with scoring high here, right? I believe that the squad can achieve a perfectly good score through standard tactics, right? And Mizukami's just simply, because outside of the score, I don't have anything else to offer you, right? And, oh man, I forgot his name already. Let me go back to the page where it said, right? Kashio is there, right? And, Kashio's like, to offer us, what does that mean, right? And pretty much, Mizukami's like, besides Cone, who got dropped on me, I chose you three when forming my squad. The way I see it, the guy who chooses has a responsibility to send his people with something more in their efforts, right? He's like, we know that our scores here are going to affect how they judge you guys later on. I mean, they said as much from the very start, right? So aiming for the best score I can was a non-negotiable thing for me, as we see like a bunch of these characters in the A ranks are like, I see, for those not hoping to join the away team, the score is really all that matters, right? And another person's like, and the bonus cash, right? But pretty much Troy is just like, but ultimately, your scheme is about to backfire on all of us. Look at this crazy, complicated program. The other squads have 2 full days worth of experience with it. You just dumped it on us like, here you go. How are we expected to produce good results under these conditions, right? At this point, Mizukami is like, what do you mean? You guys can do it. I mean, I went out of my way to pick the right people for this job. Anyway, that's all I had to say. Explanation's over. Any other demands while we're at it, I'm all ears, right? And we cut to Toma and the trapper guy of Squad 2, I forget his name. And like, so Mizukami stuck down his guns and laid down the law, right? And Toma's like, she told him to explain himself, and I'd say he did that and then some, right? And we cut around to a bunch of the people whose viewpoints we have been getting from the A ranks here, and we see that eventually Kazama's just like, well, what are you going to say, Toroya, right? As we think Toroya finally says something, and she's like, fine, but could you just say please, right? And Mizukami's just like, please? What are you talking about, right? And he's like, why would you? And Toroya's like, I get it, okay? I know how obnoxious I'm being. And of course, I'd give it 100% of my all, even without a direct request. Yet, there's something about when somebody asks me to please do something for them that lights a fire in my soul, right? As we see literally everybody in our squad just laughing and smiling, right? And we see Maki, who had previously downvoted Toroya, right? She gives her a +2 to recoup that point she lost, and then even more, right? And at this point, we see that hundreds of our people are just coming in and giving good votes to Toroya, showing that, yeah, it was a strong play that she made, right? She really put the odds into her favor there, right? At this point, Mizukami's there, and he's like, all right, no time to lose then. We'd better talk strategy for the battle sims. It's bound to be pretty darn tricky, but what do you say, please? And the entire team's just like, okay, let's do it, right? At this point, we cut back to our main squad and all of this, Suicide Squad 7, right? And as Osamu's sitting there, he's looking at his phone, and he's like, hey, Sua, do you have a minute? And Sua's like, yeah, what do you need? And Osamu's just like, I've thought of something regarding the universal assignments, but I'm not sure if it's against the rules or not. And pretty much we just see Oki and Katori are like, oh, the rules, huh? What's this sneaky trick? And at this point, the chapter ends, right? These were the chapters that we got in November, right? In future doing these reviews like this, I want to cover all the chapters, come out and pick their month. Of course, knowing Ashihara Sensei, there are months when we will not be getting chapters, which obviously sucks. but that's how it is. So I just love World Trigger enough that I want to cover it, right? And pretty much what these two chapters have offered is the entire idea of furthering the idea of, okay, what's Osamu's sneaky plan here, right? And of course, the entire talks with Utagawa squad and Kodera squad pretty much swapping information to hopefully beat Mizukami and Ninamiya squads, right? The whole thing here with Troya and Mizukami, I think they both did some very smart maneuvers here, right, to get their team right. Like, it truly shows that they are a group of smart people, right? And that really just comes out here. The whole thing with Maki upvoting Troya, it's just like, all right, sure, right? But really, the most interesting thing for me, at least as a fan of the series, is, all right, what's Osamu's next ploy here, right? Is with the universal assignments, is it the same thing that Hughes was thinking of earlier, where he's like, all right, let's just delegate this stuff like this, we'll take care of it later, right? What's the ultimate goal here that is trying to be achieved? And series, what smart ploy is Osamu going to have here, right? I really don't have a whole lot to say about this. I really like World Trigger. The way mission test is whatever you make it. It's all about playing video games and doing assignments, right? The Troya and Maki and stuff was alright. Mizukami stuff was fine. It also shows that, alright, if Mizukami is now doing this sort of things, right, how will that lead into him later on down the line? How will his team be defeated by this, right? Of course, we know that he's got some really strong players on his team, and these guys don't have... They've got decent try-on, right? Like 14s and like high teens, right? So why are they doing this, and will they be undermined by this? Will Osamu's squad come out on top? Will our main characters win out in this? And really, I think Mizukami is just a cool dude after hearing his entire speech here. But that's really all I have to say. So thank you for listening to the first of the World Trigger chapter reviews. I hope the audio hasn't been too bad. If it is, I can't really fix that, but so be it, right? So this has been World Trigger chapters 227 and 228. This would be Glowplasma 231 out.